In the middle of the forest, a terrified Joe runs for his life as a mysterious figure chases him. Unfortunately, Joe trips and falls, allowing the creature to reach him. It turns out to be a vampire, who immediately begins to drink Joe's blood. At that moment, the sun comes out and the vampire dies, turning into ashes. But Joe also burns his hand, which means he is now the vampire. He starts moving while staying in the tree's shadows and finally finds a pile of logs, grabs his blanket and covers himself, then runs to a nearby shed for protection. There he vomits as the transformation comes to an end. What if a simple backyard shed hid a terrifying secret? What if instead of old tools and cobwebs there was something dark, hungry, and deadly? In this story, a young man scarred by pain and daily violence faces the most unexpected horror right next to his home. But this is not just a horror movie. It's also a story of revenge, of corrupted friendship, and of choices that can change everything. Get ready for an intense mix of blood, suspense, and hidden monstrosities, where the real danger isn't always outside, but locked in, waiting for the perfect moment to come out. So today we'll watch The Shed. Meanwhile, Stan wakes up in his lovely house and eats breakfast with his parents. Suddenly, a glass falls to the floor, and his mother looks incredibly sick and the house is a mess. Then his father takes a gun and shoots himself in front of him. At that moment, Stan wakes up, revealing that his real house is not in good shape. His parents are dead, so he lives with his grandfather Ellis, a former soldier who always yells at him and expects him to call him sir at all times. If Stan even tries to ignore him, Ellis shoves him against the wall to threaten him while complaining about today's youth. When Stan heads to school, it's shown that the shed belongs to Ellis's house. Stan rides his bike when the gang that bullies him at school drives by like maniacs to try and make him fall. Stan manages to dodge them, but the distraction makes him crash into a patrol car. Sheriff Dorney is very understanding, but the deputy sheriff is furious and reminds him he's turning 18 soon. That means no more juvenile centers or second chances. He'll finally be able to arrest him for real. At school, Stan's best friend Dmer hears the gang bad-mouthing him and insults the guys. This makes Marble Pit and Ozzy angry, and soon they start pushing each other in the hallway. Roxy and Stan quickly jump in to defend him, and Stan nearly starts a fight, which is interrupted by a teacher who sends them all to class. After school, Dahmer says he's tired of it all and that one day he'll finally lose control and kill the gang. He also complains about Roxy, who used to be part of their friend group, but now prefers to spend time with the popular kids. Still, Stan can't help but feel drawn to her. Later at home, Stan hides in the attic to look at photos of his parents while listening to emo music and playing with his knife. After cutting himself to forget, he perfectly throws the knife at a target. Then, Ellis orders him to mow the lawn. When he goes out, the dog starts barking at the shed, but Stan doesn't understand it's a warning and goes inside anyway. While looking for the mower, he finds some teeth on the table. At that moment, Joe comes out of hiding and tries to attack him, making Stan accidentally open the window. The sunlight burns Joe and forces him back, so Stan runs out of the shed to get the dog, thinking he just saw a junkie. Stan yells at Joe to come out, and when he doesn't, he sends the dog after him. As soon as it enters, the dog whines and violent sounds are heard before its head is thrown out of the shed. Terrified, Stan runs into the house to grab a knife, and Ellis arrives to scold him, so Stan tells him about the dog and the intruder. Ellis calls the dog to confirm and goes out to confront the guy, ignoring Stan when he says they should call the police. The old man is devastated to see his dog dead and gives Stan his cane before going into the shed with a wooden stick, ready to kill. After a few minutes of silence, Ellis announces that the place is empty, except for the dog's body, until he starts screaming. Violent noises are heard again, and when they stop, Ellis exits the shed in very bad shape. Stan tries to help him, but Joe drags Ellis back inside and closes the door to finish him off. Panicking, Stan uses the dog's chain to block the door while his grandfather's blood seeps through the wood. He then runs back to the house and drinks Ellis's beer, something he's normally not allowed to do. He considers calling the police, but since he's already on probation, he thinks they'll blame him, so instead, he leaves the phone and starts working on sealing the shed so Joe can't escape and hurt others. That night, someone tries to open Stan's bedroom door. Thinking it might be Ellis, Stan leaves his room but finds no one in the hallway. The power is out, and he hears Ellis whispering his name. He checks his grandfather's room and gets scared when Ellis yells his name from behind, but no one is there again. Now the whispers come from downstairs, so Stan follows them until he finds the shed glowing and the voice growing deeper. He prepares to open the shed and the voice yells that Stan wanted him dead before the boy wakes up in his bed. The next day at school, Roxy tries to talk to Stan, only to be interrupted by Marble, who asks her for help with homework later. Roxy knows Stan judges her for dating Marble considering his behavior, but she admits she only does it to survive senior year without being bullied. Still, Stan believes those choices don't end with high school. They follow you forever. He then tries to confess what happened with Ellis, but they're interrupted by Dmer, which annoys Stan, who walks off alone. As Dmer leaves the school, the gang insults him again, and he gives them both middle fingers. Enraged, the three start chasing him through the woods. At home, Stan notices the shed door shaking and grabs a bat before approaching. Suddenly, Joe punches a hole in the door and grabs Stan by the neck, letting him see his monstrous face. The sun soon starts burning Joe's hands, so Stan easily breaks free and Joe hides again. At that moment, Dmer arrives bleeding and yells at Stan for leaving him alone. Stan interrupts to tell him that Ellis and the dog are dead and there's a monster in the shed. Dmer doesn't believe him and Stan agrees to show him, but first grabs stuff to cover the hole in the door. Suddenly, Dmer hears his name, and as he gets closer, Joe appears at the entrance. Stan runs immediately to cover the hole and Dmer helps nail the board down. Afterwards, Dmer gets excited because he thinks they can use the monster to kill the gang, but Stan believes that's going too far and forbids him to commit murder. That night, Stan goes to bed with a knife and watches an old vampire movie to learn their weaknesses, burn them with sunlight, destroy their black hearts, and decapitate them. Suddenly, a woman comes out of a sexy wall poster and sits on Stan to have sex with him, but then turns into a horrible vampire and bites him, only for Stan to wake up. While looking for his shoes, he checks under the bed and finds the vampire again, but it's another nightmare. Annoyed, he rips the poster from the wall. Then he climbs on top of the shed and starts drilling holes, so sunlight can hurt Joe, though there are still enough shadows for him to hide. Later, Sheriff Dorney arrives to see Stan and asks about Ellis, and he tells her he went out, which she finds strange since his car is still in the driveway. Stan swears he doesn't know where he is and blames it on the old man's drinking. Dorney explains that a family down the road found all their rabbits dead, so the husband went to find the culprit, but never came back. When she shows a photo of the man, Stan recognizes Joe but says he's never seen him. Dorney, now suspicious, insists on driving Stan to school, and while he gets ready, she sees Ellis's cane on the floor. At school, Roxy worries about Stan's injuries, but the moment is interrupted by another sexist, disgusting remark from Marble. Stan defends her, and Marble tells him he can have Roxy, calling her leftovers. Enraged, Stan starts beating Marble and knocks him down to keep punching him. A teacher steps in and says they're arranging a meeting with Ellis, but since they couldn't reach him by phone, they've sent Dorney to find him. Fearing for the sheriff's life, Stan runs from school to stop her, unaware Marble tries to follow. At Ellis's house, Dorney rings the bell but no one answers. Then she hears a noise coming from the shed, so she goes to investigate. She jumps at something hitting the door hard, and then hears Ellis's voice calling for help. She shoots the lock, but before opening the door, Stan shows up. Dorney points her gun at him and he tries to explain that it's Joe inside the shed, not Ellis, but she doesn't believe him. Then she opens the door to try to rescue Ellis, but Joe leaps on her. He bites her neck and lifts her arm to fire bullets into the air, then rips off her arm before dragging her into the shed to devour her. To make things worse, Marble suddenly shows up and starts beating Stan. After a few punches and kicks, he pulls out brass knuckles to finish him off, but stops when he hears a gunshot. It's Dmer who shoots Dorney's gun again to make Marble back off. Stan tries to calm him, but Dmer becomes unstable and threatens him too if he interferes. He then starts insulting Marble, forcing him to admit he's a coward before sending him into the shed. Stan warns him again, but he's ignored. At first, Marble walks normally but starts to panic when he sees Dorney's arm on the ground. He starts apologizing, blaming himself for everything at school, but Dmer orders him into the shed anyway. Soon the sounds of Marble being torn apart are heard. Furious, Stan fights Dmer for the gun while shouting at him, but a scream from Marble distracts him, and Dmer knocks him out with the gun. Moments later, Roxy wakes Stan up. Dmer is nowhere to be seen, and the shed door is open. Roxy says she didn't see anyone nearby and starts to panic at the sight of the arm on the ground. Then Stan enters the shed to investigate and finds Marble's brass knuckles on the floor. In the shadows at the back, he sees Marble standing, but his body drops, revealing that Dmer is now a vampire. Dmer tells him Joe is gone for now, but will return later to finish him off. He starts monologuing while walking toward Stan, unfazed by the sunlight burning his body. At that moment, Roxy sees him and screams, so Dmer uses the distraction to attack Stan, who immediately stabs him with a stake and exposes his arm to the sun before pushing him away. Stan then closes the shed and hugs Roxy, only to jump in fear as Dmer bursts through violently. He tries to apologize as the sun burns him to death, and Stan runs to cover him with a sheet, but it's too late. Afterward, Stan tells Roxy everything and they prepare for the night. They put Dahmer's body in the shed and return to the house, sealing every window and door and lighting a fire in the chimney. They also make stakes from various sticks and gather all the knives they can find. Stan can't help but blame himself for everything, but Roxy promises it's not his fault, and they share a kiss. When night falls, it's revealed that Joe had hidden underground in the forest and now he's coming out. At the house, Pitt and Ozzy bang on the door demanding to know where Marble is. Roxy and Stan try to tell them to leave. Ozzy gets nervous when he sees a figure in the shadows and tries to warn Pitt, who keeps arguing. Suddenly, an arm pulls him up to the roof to devour him, leaving blood dripping. Pitt finally realizes what's happening and the couple has no choice but to let him in. At that moment, Joe destroys the power box. Stan thinks they're safe because they sealed all the doors, but then realizes they forgot the attic. They start hearing noises upstairs, so they split up to check each room. Stan finds no intruders but does find Ellis's gun. Roxy checks under Stan's bed but sees nothing either. Meanwhile, Pitt finds an open window and runs to close it, not noticing the broken glass on the floor. As he turns around, he sees Ozzy turned into a vampire growling at him. At the same time, Roxy is attacked and dragged to the attic. Stan runs to help her but finds the way blocked by Ozzy and by Pitt, who is now also a vampire. Terrified, Stan enters a room and blocks the door with a chair to look for bullets, while Pitt breaks it down with an axe. Once the gun is loaded, Stan puts it in Pitt's mouth and shoots, killing both vampires at once. In the attic, Roxy is about to be struck by Joe, but Stan interrupts him. He fires, and the first bullet hits Joe's arm. But he can't shoot again because Joe is too fast and takes the gun. Then, Stan stabs the axe into Joe's shoulder, but Joe kicks him away. Joe pulls out the axe and lunges at Stan to strangle him, but Roxy grabs the gun and shoots, making Joe drop Stan to the floor. The shot only wounds Joe's face, and now the gun is out of bullets. Joe tries to attack Roxy, but then Stan yells and throws the knife he left earlier. Joe dodges it, and the knife ends up stuck in Roxy's shoulder. Then Joe tries to strangle Stan again, and now Roxy grabs the axe and uses it to decapitate Joe with a single blow. Now it's all over. The couple puts all the bodies inside the shed and sets it on fire. In the morning, they wake up inside the car and realize they didn't close the trunk. From inside, something moves to open it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Don't forget to comment your favorite part below. Well then, see you next time. Bye. Goodbye.